So first of all, I want to give a big thank you to Pablo for letting us use him as an example.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank
You
you.
want us next to him?
No.
Oh,
I have to sit in front of Brock.
gotcha.
Joe, you're being moved around.
You mean you get to sit
Yeah, I
in
get to
front
sit.
of
Good
us?
morning,
Thank you.
Julie.
I'm pliable.
Good morning, how are you?
Hey, Jason.
Hey, Jason.
So the purpose of this conversation or these classes right now is to build a winning marketing plan. And the first thing I want you to know about building a successful marketing plan is that it's mentally hard work. And I think this is where most people get off track. I was fortunate enough to have a wonderful professor at UCI that taught a couple of marketing classes. And he said, the biggest mistake most people make when it comes to marketing is they are lazy mentally. They don't force themselves to answer the difficult questions before they create a marketing plan. And they want to skip all the hard mental work and just say, what am I going to do? And he said, if you go through the mental work up front, what you need to do becomes almost obvious and will always maximize your return on investment. He says if you skip the mental work up front, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to waste money and your marketing will be ineffective. And so I understand that some of the things we're going to talk about are hard to figure out. There's no right or wrong answers. You have to make decisions. You have to think about it. And you have to think about both the big picture and the execution details, the small details at the same time. Because you have to think about where am I going and how do I get there. Now, the great news is if you do a good marketing plan, it will enable you to accomplish your goals financially and give you the biggest bang for every dollar that you have. So that when you're putting together a marketing plan, for the money that you have to invest in marketing, you're going to get the biggest bang for every dollar. And that's the real payoff of doing the work. Now, to do this effectively, the first thing I'm going to ask you is to stop thinking like a realtor. Realtors tend to make bad marketing plans because they think like realtors. What I really want you to do is put on a media planner hat. So does anybody know what a media planner is? Best guess, just based on the name.
Somebody that plans media.
So a media planner is a unique person. They are hired by a lot of people, and basically what they are given is an objective. I want you to increase market share by X percentage, and they're given a budget. They're given a clear objective and a budget, and their job is to go out and figure out all the different possibilities and maximize the return on investment. Now, if you're a good media planner, you're in very high demand. A good media planner makes a couple $1 million a year because it's hard work.
And they're generating
Massive amounts of return on equity, but there's so many possibilities. Think about it. If you had to think about where are all the possibilities for you to put marketing and advertising today, and you made an exhaustive list of every place, how long would that list be?
Huge.
I mean, literally, there's so many things that's almost overwhelming to think about. So what you need to do is think, I have a fixed budget. Just out of curiosity, how many of you do have an unlimited marketing budget? So we all have fixed budgets. We have X number of dollars, and now to say, okay, how do I get the maximum return for the money that I actually do have to invest in it? So last week we talked about the fact that to really do a good marketing plan, the first thing you need is to clearly define target market. Understanding how the marketing currently perceives you and your competition. And this is what a lot of people skip because they don't know, well, I don't know how to find that information. We're going to talk about that. A crystal clear set of objectives, a core marketing message, a list of media options, a plan for all the leads you generate, a budget, and a clear way of measuring the results so you know what you're looking for. And Pablo went through and answered these questions pretty well, and so we're going to go through and talk about them and talk about the good things and bad things about what Pablo did here. So first of all, who is your target marketplace? And for Pablo, his target marketplace is the Bluffs in Newport Beach, 1,247 houses, condos, and he did some great research on the turnover rates. And this is a great farm when you look at it. Now, why can we sort of establish this is a very good farm?
Because of how many sales take place.
The turnover rate is greater than 7. And, well, at 7, a little bit less.
Well, and the turnover rate is greater than 5, actually. And remember that the national average in turnover is currently 4.94, so it's right at 5%. And this is one of the things that I think realtors actually forget. Who can tell me what the highest turnover rate in history of real estate has been on a national average? 2008.
No, of course.
15%.
I'll say 22.
I love realtors. They're so optimistic.
50?
It's never been anywhere close to that.
The highest?
The highest in history was 7.9%. And that was only 1 year.
Okay.
If you average the last 50 years, it's about 4.7%. And yet realtors, when you ask them, what's the size of your marketplace, they come up with numbers that seem so crazy to me when you actually look at what really is happening. But this is a great farm, 7.2, 4.9, 6.5. Overall, you've got a, close to a 6% turnover rate, and you've got consistent sales at a decent number. So this is a very good farm area. What Pablo didn't answer is, why did you pick this farm? What do you love about this area?
I missed that one? I don't think it was on there.
Oh,
that's a new question.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a
I
ringer.
remember
That's
The reason I picked it was because of the turnover rate and the price point.
Okay.
I felt like, and at the time when we checked it a year ago, there really wasn't a dominant, what I was told by my coach at the time, look for an area that turns over 5% and look for an area that doesn't have one person doing at least 25% of the business.
And those are two really good things to pick a farm with. The third part of selecting a clearly defined target marketplace is figuring out, what do you love about this area? What do you love about this group? If you don't love the area, if you aren't excited about the group of people, the houses that you're selling, it subconsciously communicates that to your marketplace, and it makes it much harder to succeed.
Okay.
So, what do you like about this area?
I love the area because when we lived there, my kids could walk to school, and I love my son is still at the high school. He's a sophomore. Oh, he'll be a junior now in September. So I love the area for that. It's a great school. They got a great elementary and a great high school.
And it's on the back bay.
Yeah, it's on the back there. You got
Right
trails. Yeah, I like the area.
So, part of getting a clearly defined marketplace is doing what I call creating your ideal client avatar. And this is something that if you go to major marketing companies, they always do. This was actually pioneered about 70 years ago by Procter & Gamble. And then Procter & Gamble was, as they were marketing, looked and said, they realized that their marketing was too general in nature. And so they did something, and the first product they actually did this for was Tide. And they said, we want to create an avatar. They didn't call it an avatar. They called it back then the ideal client profile. And so they came up with a specific person and described her life in detail and said, when we sit down to create marketing and advertising, we want to write with her in mind. What they found is that you will come up with much better marketing if you have a single person in mind. If you try and think about a group, or you try and think about two different, very different people, your marketing will always start to weaken significantly because it becomes too general in its appeal. And it seems counterintuitive to us because we say, well, I don't want to just appeal to that person. But if we think about it, there's enough overlap in people. If we come up with a clearer marketing for them, we're going to be much more likely to touch their emotions, their appeal. And so the first thing is to really write out a clear avatar. And what I want you to do is describe the age, education, lifestyle, likes, dislikes, family size of your ideal member of that farm. And remember that, yes, farms are made up of a variety of different people. But if you pick your ideal client and now start writing your marketing plan for them, you'll be much more effective. So, since we have Pablo here, give us a description of your ideal client in your target marketplace.
I guess we're the person we're trying to reach is the older, needing to go from a multi-level property into a single-level property.
So when you say older, how old are they?
Probably 70s, 70 plus.
So to me, this is where I want you to get specific. My ideal client is 72 and a half years old.
Okay.
What's going on in their life?
They're not liking going up and down stairs.
They're not liking going up and down stairs, okay?
Yeah. They haven't remodeled their home. It's still kind of original-ish condition. So there's still a lot of room for improvement. So it'll be easier to sell to somebody coming in having that vision.
Okay. So 72-year-old has not remodeled their home in, what, 15 years, 20 years?
20 years.
Okay. And what are their hopes and dreams? What are their goals for the rest of their life?
To get into a single story to live out the rest of their life in comfort without having to go up and down the stairs.
So, single story is their primary goal. Are they interested in having things modernized, simplified?
You know, I think I'd probably upgrade it, to say the least, you know.
So is this a single man? Is it a single woman?
No,
Is
I
it
think it's
married
a couple, married couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they have kids?
Yeah, but gone.
They're gone?
Yeah. Empty nesters.
Okay.
Yeah. So the house is also too big for them.
So the house is too big for them. So why do they keep holding on to it?
They're having trouble finding that one-story house. Taxes. I'm sorry, Sid.
Inertia.
Yeah. It's getting them moving.
Any, let's put on the woman's hat, anything else that you can think of that is stopping them from selling this big house?
Memories?
That's a
What
capital
they built
gains.
in the house.
Capital gains is a good one.
Yeah.
And just overwhelm, too much stuff from 25 years.
Yeah, we get
living in
that
the
stuff.
same
They got
house.
too much stuff. I'm like, man, just box
So-
it all up and go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So here's my question. If I picked up the marketing you've been doing in the last year, would that message be clearly communicated?
Absolutely, right, Brock?
See, now, once you have that, do you think just sitting down and creating marketing will be easier?
Yeah. You're targeting that person, yeah.
To me, this is like so amazingly simple because it gives you such a clear direction on, oh, now let me write marketing that's going to communicate that message to this group of people.
Okay.
I mean, it just makes it so much clearer and easier if you do that. And yet, we resist sitting down and just going through it. And the other thing is, once you have this, it's easy to go and say, oh, there's an ideal client. Let me go sit down and just have a conversation with them. Say, hey, you're sort of my ideal client. I'd just love to sit down and ask you some questions.
Tamara, are you recording this by chance?
I am.
Okay, so I want to make sure Ryan can see it since he's in good all.
So to me, it's like, it's so important to think this through, and it will surprise you some of the things, the inertia. I found that a lot of older women, especially, are reluctant to sell the big house, even though they complain about the stairs or variety of things, because they say, well, I don't want to move someplace so small that I can't have my family and grandkids come over for Christmas.
Mhm. That's for sure an
Yeah.
objection, yeah.
So now think about it, if my fears are this, but what's the best way to sort of inspire them to make that move?
Time to get over it.
Get over yourself and buy from me.
But you got,
That works every time.
we're talking a week for
Class is over.
51 weeks of
Yeah, but-
torture.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that is the unemotional, the minimal way to look at it.
Thank you, Peter.
I don't have an answer to that other than to say, to address it, and we'll find a place
So how do you address that?
somewhere in the copy, I guess.
And what are you going to address? What is the goal that says I want to bring my family over for Christmas? What are they trying to get
They're
out
missing
of that?
their kids. They're missing
Oh.
family. The kids aren't coming, are
And
visiting.
they want to be relevant.
So think about how to now write an inspirational message that's going to accomplish that. What? Give me some ideas of what you think you might want to do.
Make new memories.
Make new memories.
Oh,
Damn, Rob. You got the marketing genius, bro.
oh, man.
So you're trying to make new memories, and somebody said relevant. So it's like find a new home that will attract your kids to come and spend more time to make new memories. That's a compelling value proposition to people that are in that description that you're giving. It's not, very rarely do people make what I call the rational, logical real estate decisions. Otherwise, they'd have already moved. Now, so to me, it's like, look at the emotional reasons, the things that are the fears and hopes and dreams, and that's why you want to clearly define those. And I found if you just go through that, it makes such a huge difference.
Greg, can I
Sure.
build on that? The mental image that you're creating in my mind is that my marketing is going to be read by one person at a time. They're not going to crowd around the little brochure, the flyer, a group of them, and read it. No. It's one person at a time. It's going to look at that. It's either going to grab them or it's going into the round pile. That is a breakthrough in my mind.
And remember that this is one of the things that I think we tend to forget. When we write marketing, we tend to think I'm reaching a lot of people, but marketing is always read individually.
Mhm.
It's always an individual experience. So you really are much better off if you're writing one person to another.
Okay.
No.
That's outstanding.
So just keep that in mind when you're doing it. And the more clearly you have this idea, and the more you can ask yourself, what are their hopes and dreams? What are their fears? How can I say this? And realize you're going to have to say a lot of these things in a variety of different ways. But once you have this clear paper of describing it, and what they tell you is once you have your avatar written, every time you sit down to write an ad, a flyer, a letter, anything, pull out your avatar description and read it, and then write your marketing, and you will be better. Just because-
Can you say that again? Slow.
Every time you sit down to create any marketing,
Mm-hmm.
pull out your description of your ideal avatar, and just reading it right before you write your marketing will be more relevant. Just because you're thinking about the exact client that you're trying to appeal to. My marketing professor told me, he said, unfortunately, most of us write marketing that we respond to, not our clients. And he said, unless you are exactly your clients, you're probably never going to create the greatest marketing. He said, so if you are your perfect ideal client, that can work really well, but if not, think about them in advance. The next thing that I found in creating a good marketing plan is you got to figure out, how does the marketplace see you? Now, for some of you, that's really easy because they don't know you.
They don't.
One person knows me, for sure.
And so, first thing you want to do is ask what percentage of your market recognizes your name. And one of the first marketing objectives that is really useful for real estate agents is to get at least 50% of the people in your marketplace to recognize your name in unaided recall. Name recognition, just pure outright name recognition, is one of the hugest advantages out there. That's why if somebody comes in and they're semi-famous already, they have a huge advantage because they're already known. They have name recognition. I know you. And research on service professionals shows that if I have a basic knowledge of you, I know your name, I recognize it, I feel familiar with it. I may have never met you, don't really know anything about you, but if I just recognize your name, I am almost 3 times as more likely to call you than if I don't.
I have good name recognition, but they don't couple it with my real estate business.
So what are you recognized for? What do people know?
Well, because in my farm, I'm always walking or running or I'm present. I'm on the board, and so every year they get the flyer of all the people. It says, here who's on the board, and I have to write a little thing, real estate agent, da-da-da-da. And yet they are surprised when they find out that I'm in real estate. So that name recognition is there, it's just they don't know or forget that I'm in real estate. So that's my challenge.
So then, what does your name stand for?
Or
Area expert.
intelligence, compassion, athletic, all those kind of things. Because that's what I present. But do I tell them that I'm in real estate when I meet them? No.
So
This
here's
is about Pablo. Don't direct it
No,
towards me.
so but it's all the same thing. So part of it is, if we're unknown in the marketplace and we're in real estate, people do have a perception. If somebody just walks up to you and you're talking to them and they say they're in real estate, what's your basic impression of them? If we just talk to general consumers and somebody said, oh, that's a realtor.
It's unfavorable. Yeah, it's not positive.
So part of it was, if we're totally unknown, we need to understand that we're sort of behind the 8 ball to start with. We don't have what I call neutral favorability ratings. Just being a realtor is somewhat of a negative. The other thing we need to think about is, how are you perceived in relationship to other agents in the marketplace? So who are the dominant players in the marketplace? And if there are dominant players or people that have significant market share, more than 5 or 6%, you need to think, what is the position they hold in the marketplace? Now, the biggest mistake most agents make is that they see somebody that's successful in a marketplace and they say, okay, they're known for X. Let me out X them. And that's a losing strategy. you can't X. So what you have to do is, if you look at somebody that's successful in a marketplace, what you have to do is say, how can I be anti-X? So I have a clear differentiation. I can have X or Y. And the more clearly you can differentiate yourself from them, so, you know, for new agents, it's amazing how many of them they see an experienced agent, and they want to come out and they want to talk about their experience and knowledge, and that's absolutely the worst strategy. The best strategy for a young new agent is to say, a new approach to real estate. The old has been around long enough.
It's like Tide. All of a sudden you see eco-friendly detergents, right? Instead of challenging Tide, they go to the eco-friendly. So that's
So to me, it's like, how can I be the opposite of what that person is? Now, part of it has to be authentic. So if you aren't totally authentic, it's not a good plan. But try and say, okay, for the people in the marketplace, how can I offer a clear alternative to them? Not how can I outdo them at what they already are known for. That's always going to be a losing strategy. Now, if you have no idea how you're perceived, other people are perceived, the great thing is today, there are so many different ways to survey people. Now, to me, I found that you can send out a postcard driving people to a survey online, and that's probably going to get you the best response. Now, it's never going to give you 100%. You're going to be lucky to get 3 to 5%, but it'll give you a good understanding of how people perceive you. And I didn't have a good questionnaire to use as an example, so this one's a little blurry. But basically, it just says, you know, this is a survey about Pablo or whoever your name in there, and I just want to know, first of all, what's your impression of Pablo? What's the impression? If you were going to list your home today, who would you list with and why? Basic little questions to give you an understanding of the marketplace. Just to give you a starting point to say, here's where I'm really out, here's where I'm perceived in the marketplace, and then you can get some direction on how to go. Now, once you sort of know, here's how I'm perceived, here's my competitors, now the next thing is to come up with your core marketing message. And you want to think about what you're trying to accomplish in both the short term and the long term. Now, an effective marketing message does at least the two following things. It builds name and brand awareness, and it clearly differentiates you. And this is got to be, you know, something you're thinking about it. Now, ideally, it should motivate people to take a specific action step. But that, in the short term, is valuable. In the long term, you don't want to be too heavy-handed with action, calls to action, because people feel like you're always trying to sell me. It can create a counterproductive feel. So you want to have calls to action, motivate people to take a specific action step that are friendly and approachable without being heavy-handed. Now, the other thing your brand message must be is it must be clearly authentic for you. So whatever your brand message is, when I meet you, I've got to feel like, oh, this is who they really are. This is what I expected. The worst thing you can do is create an expectation of one thing and show up and be something else. So if you really create a fun, clever marketing campaign, people expect you to be fun. If you're not fun, they feel like, oh, well, I bought this, but I'm getting that. So it needs to be a clear reflection of who you are at a core level in there. And this has got to be the core underpinning of your marketing. Now, your marketing messages, your ads, can be very flexible around this, but there's got to be a core marketing message that's the undertone of everything. So, what was Steve Jobs' core underpinning behind all of Apple's marketing?
Think differently.
And that was an expression of it, but even
User friendly, fun,
what's
pretty.
the
Excellence.
uniqueness?
It's an easy product to use.
We don't know.
Consumer oriented.
Self, individual.
So think about it from a Steve. What drove Steve? What was he trying to accomplish with his life?
You want a computer at every home?
Innovation?
No, that was Skates.
That was Microsoft.
Okay.
Simplifying the life, everybody's life through
Well, it's
technology.
obviously
Streaming everything together, like all your technologies.
Well, see, and here's the biggest problem is that now we're so far down the road. We've got all these different perceptions of Apple and what they've done.
According to the movie, he just wanted Lisa to like him.
Depending on which book. So to me, early on, he said his biggest goal was he wanted to put a dent in the universe.
That's right.
That he wanted to make a difference. And so part of this core brand message is, what is your big why? What drives you? And is that reflected in your marketing? Especially your core brand message. This has got to be what I call a value proposition of who you are as an agent. And not just as an agent, but as a person. And this is one time you actually want to be more focused on you than your clients. It's like, what is your core reason for being in real estate, for what you're trying to accomplish in your life? And if you can reflect that in a little bit of a way that people feel like, I understand their values, something about them, your marketing will be more effective because it just adds that what I call believability factor. If you read marketing and you find yourself thinking, oh, that's a clever sales pitch, it's already gone off track because there's something not authentic with it. So to me, it's like, what's that sort of core underpinning of it that's a value proposition? And this is probably the hardest part of your marketing because there's no easy answer. Now, Pablo's been working on this with Joe and a variety of things. So do you care to carry your slogan?
Our slogan is "Make the right move."
Okay. And explain what that means to you.
Well, if anybody here is old enough to remember, we went off to talk about football and talk about high school. And do you remember the old Tom Cruise movie, All the Right Moves? So we were talking about tying something to the school, and then we started talking about, well, let's help people make the right move in going from a multi-story into a single story. And the reverse could also apply in that if somebody's outgrown their single story, they can move to a bigger home. And it was just about making the right move for the next chapter in your life. So we were sitting through hours and we thought that would be a
I
good one.
like that. I
It's
think
really
it's
flexible,
really
like you
good.
said, up or down.
And
We
it's,
just wanted to
I like
apply
that.
to the person, as whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. Hey, let us help you to make the right move.
That's brilliant.
It's not what we want for you, but what you want for yourself.
So, and notice the underpinning of helping. And to me, it's like, it's part of who Pablo is. It's like, I want to help you make the right move. His background as a coach, it's a reflection of who he is. Now, once you have a core marketing message, you want to create a slogan and logo and a look that communicates that look at a glance. So that when you see that marketing message, it's clearly yours. I mean, to me, the ultimate example of this is Target took a circle. And is there any doubt when you see a Target ad that it's a Target ad?
No.
And it's just a circle. Now, it's a color combination, it's the way they present the circles, but the second you start watching a Target commercial, you know it's a Target commercial. Before they've said anything, before they've had their slogan logo at the end, you know this. That's what you need to ask yourself. At a glance, is every piece of my marketing distinctly my marketing? And the more you can have a distinct look at a glance, the more effective your marketing will be at everything. Whether I see a Facebook ad, whether I see a print piece, whether I see an ad, I even go back to traditional print advertising, whatever it is, the more distinctive your marketing looks, the more effective it's going to be. So Priscilla has a distinct look in all of her marketing. And it's paid huge dividends for her just glancing at whatever she does. People know, oh, that's Priscilla. And she has poster boards, Facebook pages, a variety of different things. Her website has the same look and feel. So that to me, that makes a huge difference. If you have strong brand recognition and name recognition together, then you're going to do incredibly well. Now, when building name recognition, remember that you've got to grab people's attention and communicate what you stand for. So I see a lot of agents that are suffering from the same thing that Dieter has. They establish a name, they're known in their community, but they never connect that with real estate. And whether you connect it directly with real estate, like I'm a realtor, to me, because we're bringing in the negative connotations, if you connect it with your brand connection, like helping you make the right move, and you give people a story that they can understand, and it's the story that makes the difference. And over the last few years, fortunately, we have seen the impact of storytelling come back to the forefront. I think we lost sight of the power of story. But if you think about what's your marketing story, what's the story you're going to tell to people, it makes such a huge difference in getting people to really connect with you emotionally.
So, Greg, so what you're saying is that when we meet people, whether they know us or not, and we're talking about I'm a realtor. Instead of just saying I'm a realtor and letting it drop there, I'm a realtor who, and then the tagline of our story.
And I would say skip I'm a realtor and just go to your tagline.
There you go.
So
Yeah, I help people buy and sell homes. That'd be good.
More specific.
to me, when you say I help people buy and sell realtor, oh, my mind says, oh, you're a realtor.
Okay.
I automatically put you in this box called real estate agent, salesperson. So I know, my brain gets fuzzy on these different things. Didn't we have a class or one of these sessions where we talked about what you say when you introduce yourself?
Yes,
I
we
missed
had that a
that
few
one.
weeks ago.
So to me, it's like that's that 30-second elevator pitch. And the goal of that is to intrigue people, not to,
Turn them off.
not to turn them off. But it's like, and to get them to ask questions, to be intrigued enough to say, well, tell me more about that. If we get them involved and interested in who we are, and now what we do comes out naturally. So this is where I highly recommend you watch Simon Sinek's little video, his little TED Talk on YouTube. And if you go to YouTube and just type in Simon Sinek, S-I-N-I-C-K, I believe. Simon Sinek, and even if you spell his name right, then start with why.
Okay.
He has a little 12-minute TED Talk that makes a compelling case on why you should start with why versus what you do. And to me, it's so incredibly effective.
That's good.
Start with why you do what you do instead of what you do. And you'll be so much more memorable in people's brains. And this is where that core marketing message should be. Now, once you've got these things in place, now you can start building brand recognition, a variety of things to get people to take calls to action. What a lot of people do is go to the call to action. So this is a classic example. Christine Crockett worked very hard for a couple of years building her brand, her recognition in her area, and she's one of the top agents up in Toronto. Now, we see her slogan and logo at the top. And this was an interesting test that we did. We took a target marketplace on Facebook, and we ran this ad for Christine, and we ran the identical picture, the identical special report. Everything was exactly the same, except we used a name that nobody had ever heard of. We actually just made up a name. And we ran them so they were running at the same time to the same target marketplace. Now, this was in Christine's core target marketplace where she had established herself for about 3 years as the brand of choice. Exactly the same ad, same graphics, same look, and she got 10 clicks for every one that the neutral name got. So what's the difference?
Brand name recognition.
I feel comfortable with Christine. This is also why people get so confused with the offers for free market evaluations. If you have no name recognition, I'm already skeptical of you. If I know you and trust you and you say, well, I want a free market evaluation, it's going to work. That's why we see such wildly diverse responses to the same offer. And we tend to forget that. We tend to think, oh, it's just, it's the offer that matters. Well, it's not really the offer that matters. It's the offer along with the combination, the brand recognition, the different things that I see out there. So when Priscilla runs an ad and she's very well known, and it's a critical question you should ask a realtor before you list your home, you say, well, yeah, I want to know those. If I've never heard of you, I think you're going to sell me something. So it's always getting back to how is this affecting my long-term value proposition. Also, create a list of the calls to action that you have in place in your target marketplace and rate them from best to worst. Now, one, how effective are they, and how personable are they? Now, one of the things that I loved about what Pablo did was he had a crystal set of objectives, and this is one of the things that so many agents start building a marketing plan and they don't ever actually have a clear set of objectives. What am I really trying to accomplish? The number one thing when I sit down with people and they say, well, Greg, I want to build a marketing plan. I say, well, what do you want to accomplish? They say, well, Greg, I want to increase sales. And I know we're going to fail already. It's like, because that's not an objective that's doable. It's like, well, it's yes, you want to increase sales. Well, by how much? By when? Because that gives you concrete things to actually go out and look. Increasing sales, being more productive, being successful, those are values, not objectives. So Pablo was really clear. 5% market share, or 10% market share by May of 2019. And I love market share goals because it's like, okay, I'm going to be able to see how I'm comparing to other agents. I can track what other types of things. It's not just a sales goal. You know, I do think there should be a sales goal in there. But then 20% market share by the 4th year. And my best guess is that if he hits the first goal of 10% market share by May of 2019, he'll have 30% market share by May of 2020.
Wow.
Once you hit, and 10% is actually a little magical number. Once you hit 10% market share in an area, if you follow up aggressively, it's easy to take it to 30%. Getting to 10% is the hard part. And you also want to spell out in terms of market share, sales numbers, but you also want to have in your set of objectives things like time off. Because if you say, my goal is to sell 50 homes, have 25% market share, and you don't have any personal goals like, I want to work 45 hours a week maximum, I want to be able to take 4 weeks of vacation a year, I want to do this with minimal stress in my life, you might achieve the goal, but you have no life. I've seen lots of very successful agents achieve their goals and at the end say, yeah, I sold, 50 homes and I have no marriage, I have no relationship with my kids, so just make sure that you're putting a clear set of goals in there. So I put an example of take 15 listings on a farm each year, generate 2 referrals a month, generate 5 buyer leads a month from my farm, have 1 3-day weekend a month off, work 8:30 to 3:30 weekdays and Saturdays from 10 to 5.
Okay.
So that's a clear set of objectives that get your goals, but also give you the life that you want to lead. Now, the next thing you want to look at is your marketing numbers. And I realize that my computer is going to die in just a second, so I'm going to grab my charger.
Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Margaret.
Hey, Margaret. So I've come to the conclusion my marketing plan is non-existent.
Oh.
I mean, I thought it was good. It's got it all laid out. It's smart.
Oh, good for you.
It's
Wow.
specific, achievable, measurable, timely, but it's not specific. This is general. Even though it says narrow focus and broaden knowledge in specific markets, it sounds good. It's like textbook, but it's not specific.
So once you sort of have a clear idea of what you're trying to accomplish from a marketing point of view, you also want to make sure that your farm is big enough to achieve your sales objectives. And what you want to ask is, based on what I'm trying to accomplish in terms of sales, do I have enough people in my farm to be successful? I talk to a lot of agents and they say, well, I have 300 people in my farm and I want to sell 50 homes a year.
with a 2% turnover right now.
It's like, okay, well, yes, so there's a problem here. So, make sure that the farm area that you do have has a big enough objective or big enough size to achieve your goals. And it's, basically doing the math. So if you have a transaction goal of doing 15 transactions, your market share goal is 30%. Understand that to get a 30% market share, you're going to have an area where at least 50 homes a year sell. If you have a 5% turnover rate, how big does that farm area have to actually be? So you're going to divide 50, the total number of transactions, by 5%. And that'll tell you how big that farm area has to be to have you have a realistic shot at getting 15 transactions if you get 30% market share. Any guesses on the number?
1,000, isn't it?
It is 1,000. So you need 1,000 people in there. Is it realistic that your first year that you're going to get 30% market share? Probably not. So, part of it is you're going to look and say, how do I build this over time? Maybe you say, well, I'm being a little bit more realistic. My goal is 20% market share. Now, I have to have an area where 75 homes are selling, so I need 1,500 people in it. Now, which is better? 1,000-person farm or 1,500-person farm?
Depends on your budget.
And that's the key answer. It depends on your budget. You want a small enough farm that you can afford to be in consistently. Don't let size dictate everything. Your budget is so dependent upon this. The worst thing I see people do is start a big farm without enough budget. And they farm for 2 or 3 months and they run out of money before they get anything. So make sure if you're starting a market, you look at it and you say, I'm going to commit to a marketing budget for at least a year for that farm area. The next thing you'll look at is all your media options. And you want to make a list of all the options first, but then realize that all marketing exposures are not created equal. And people so many times when I'm talking to agents, they say, well, I can reach them in Facebook. It's cheaper than sending them a postcard. It's cheaper than calling them or doing a variety of things. And what I found is that one piece of great direct mail has the same impact as 10 to 15 Facebook ad exposures. So as you look at all the options out there, try and always bring it back to some common denominator and say, what impact does this have? And yes, it's cheaper, but is it having the same impact? And you have to sort of weigh those factors out. Now, and so often people look at a single marketing method and say, what about, a bus bench or a billboard ad or, Google ads? And remember that these things don't exist in isolation. What you really want to think about is, how can I deliver my marketing message in at least 3 different ways to the same target marketplace? The research shows that if I see you in 3 different marketing vehicles, each one of those marketing vehicles, the impact of it individually will go up by 20 to 25% just because I see you in different marketing ways. If I only see you in one way, I don't think you're as successful just because I'm only seeing you in one way. So this is where people say, well, Greg, are Facebook ads good? Yes and no. They're really good if you're doing a direct mail campaign and now suddenly they see you on Facebook and they get something in the mail and they see your Facebook ad. That's probably going to be a lot more effective than it just by itself. So it's how do I put a combination of things out together that can be more effective? And Pablo put together a pretty good plan here, and here's a list of his media options. These are things that he's thinking about doing.
Is that per month or per?
The budget.
Yeah,
is
like that
per-
for media option.
Well, we're doing it twice. Right now, all we're doing is twice a month is dropping or getting something in a direct piece.
He's doing direct piece, and then you're calling, right?
No, we haven't been. I'm starting to, but I haven't done it in the last year.
Okay. So to me, it's like whenever you're doing something consistently, and he's successful just being consistent with his 2 pieces of direct mail a month. But then if you add in something else,
Okay.
calling, Facebook ads, some other vehicle, you will see that impact will go up dramatically.
But he doesn't need to do 3 to 5 strong marketing exposures in each vehicle.
No.
Okay.
So combination
Okay.
of 3 to 5 marketing exposures.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you're looking at marketing vehicles, always ask, how are you in comparison to your competitors? If you have strong competitors doing exactly the same thing, your message is more important. The more you stand out, it's got to be different. So if you're in an area where a lot of people are mailing, make sure you're looking at their cards and say, how can my cards be dramatically different so that by comparison in people's minds, I'm the better alternative just looking at the mail. And what else can I do to add into it so that it gives me the extra advantage? So what you want to do is calculate the cost per exposure of every advertising vehicle you're using. And in advertising, they call this the CPM, and it's basically the price of an ad times the number of people reached. And you want to make sure that you have what they call effective frequency. And that's the 3 to 5 exposures consistently month in and month out. Now, once you've got this,
Excuse me, Greg, can I ask a question?
sure,
I'm seeing a lot of, in the supermarkets now, on the supermarket baskets. Is that a positive thing to be doing? I'm seeing two people showing up at the supermarket on those baskets. I'm pushing the same 2 people.
so if you have very clearly established name recognition, so Yolanda Muckle is a good example of this in that in her farm area, she is the #1 agent. She is literally everywhere. She does direct mail. She's also got a billboard. She's got bus benches. For her, adding in a shopping cart would probably be a great thing. If I have never seen you, if I have never known you, I have no idea who you are, a shopping cart is a total waste of your money. Billboards, bus benches, things that are what I call 2 seconds or less to have meaning, only work once you've established name recognition. So this is why people get confused about why do people pay big dollars for naming rights of stadiums? So Staples is paying, I think, $56 million a year for the naming rights of the Staples Center. Are they getting $56 million worth of value?
Yes,
Why?
because that's not their only, it's just another way to get in people's heads at a high level every
And we hear over and over again, Staples Center, Staples Center, Staples Center, Staples Center.
Perpetual.
Oh, I need to go to Staples. So again, this is where, don't get faked out. If you paid $56 million to put your name on the Staples Center, and we call it the Lisa Hoover Center, would Lisa get $56 million of the value?
Unfortunately.
I hate to tell her this.
No. What?
So this is where it's sort of looking at how it comes into context. The more name recognition you have, the more value you're going to get in all the different things out there. So this is a gentleman that has been running a variety of different things, and he added in movie theater advertising. I think I have a little audio clip from his wife. Let's see.
Hey Greg, this is Belinda. I just wanted to leave you a message. You may not remember, but Scott and I bought your marketing plan in Palm Springs. Scott, his personal assistant, handled the sales and the transactions, and I'm still taking care of the financial and all of the marketing. First, I want to thank you for your great staff. They're always immediately responsive and on top of things. Right now, they're working on updating Scott's movie theater ads. I don't know if you realize this, that you created those ads for Scott, and we've been running them on all 12 screens ever since. After the first year of ads, they offered us an exclusive spot for a whole $50 more a month, so we don't even compete with other realtors or brokerage firms anymore. I did want to share a story. Earlier this year, Scott had a gentleman call him to list his home in an area we don't even direct market to. He was being transferred. He remembered Scott's ad, knew his last name, started with an A, but couldn't remember the website or the phone number. So he took his family to the movies so he could get the information off the ad. Scott listed his home, sold it very quickly, and they moved. It's amazing how often people mention his ad to us, connect the name with real estate sales, and remember his Eagle brand. I just wanted to let you know that the direct mail marketing website and this movie theater, with all the brand materials that you created for Scott, is really the cornerstone of our marketing plan, and it just keeps working. Scott keeps listing properties at the full 6% commission. We're not running around doing REO, short sales, and foreclosures. And best of all, we've increased our revenue over this last year in the hardest hit real estate slump area of the entire country.
So, to me, if you create a brand and you do it consistently over time, the key is that we get faked out and we say, oh, it sounds like a good idea. What we tend to forget is Scott ran that movie theater ad for 3 years before he really started getting a payoff. His 5th year, it paid huge dividends, and now he's been doing it for almost 17 years, and he will tell you, oh man, it's one of the most effective things I do.
I would have given up after 2 months.
Well, that's
All of us do. They go, I didn't get any sleep though. Yeah.
that's where most people don't get the consistency. So understand, it takes at least 6 to 9 months of consistent marketing before it starts to turn to actual business. And that's if you've done things so that you actually are building a brand. So that's why I tell people, when you're committing to a business plan, put together your budget and commit to at least a year-long plan, and don't bank on, in month 3, it to be funding months 4, 5, and 6. Because it's going to take longer than that. If you already have name recognition in an area, it's going to get faster response. Then, this is where I see so many agents do everything right and then let it slip away, is once you actually have a lead that's generated from your marketing, you need to have a written plan of your follow-up, and it needs to be systematic so that every single person gets the same follow-up. Do not use what I call a value-based judgment on follow-up. So many times we meet somebody in an open house and say, well, I like them, I'm gonna follow up with them. I don't like them, I'm not gonna follow up with them. I don't care whether you like them, don't like them. I don't care whether they seem good client, whether they rated them an A, B, or C. They need to get the exact same follow-up. Because here's what I found. 90% of the time, you rate the person wrong. We like to believe that we can guess what people are really going to do. And my experience is that you can't. And here's what I found. If you have a great follow-up program that every single person goes through. Now, here's what I've also found is that you as agents think that a good follow-up program is usually overkill. What consumers always report back is, I was so impressed that you followed up. Consistently, it separated you out from all the other agents because you followed up. And it's like, so Pablo has got it right here, he's got an 8x8. And to me, that's what you need to have. You need to have an 8x8 for every single client. Every lead you generate, A, B, C, D, E lead, they should get a piece a week for 8 weeks from you automatically. And if you do that, and then you put them on a long-term follow-up campaign, your conversion rates will go through the roof.
Is it a mail out or is it a email?
Well, if we get email, they get the mail automatically, the 8 postcards.
Oh,
If we get their email, they're also going to get 8 emails.
oh, okay.
So they're going to get 16 touches over 8 weeks.
Wow, good.
In addition to, they're still getting the 2 pieces that the farm is getting.
Yeah,
And
Good.
don't rely too heavily on email. Because if you actually look at opening rates of email, they are abysmally low. I mean, we're talking 5-6%. And if you're thinking that's following up, it's just not. That's why I found physical mail produces dramatically better response, and doing both is always the best. So it's
I'm sorry, mail and what else?
mail, email, and calls.
Oh.
That's
On emails, even my friends are unsubscribing me.
yeah, me too.
It's amazing to me.
so when you get unsubscribed.
They're overwhelmed in their emails.
My friend.
So, but remember that unsubscribes are just feedback. And the feedback from unsubscribes is we're not providing enough value in the form of entertainment.
Oh.
Well, it's a digital magazine. It's not just a newsletter, it's a digital magazine. But I guess what I can do is spin a positive to it. I'll call up and say, what? I can't believe you unsubscribed me, right?
Or maybe it's our subject line. It should be something like,
Well, so again, we overall, subject lines, I mean,
that's what we're
are
asking
important.
you.
Yes, they're important, but unsubscribes are always an indication that the content that we gave them was not meeting their needs. And it's usually in forms of, I didn't provide enough entertainment with the content. I mean, we are in a infotainment world.
Well, I said a recipe, for God's sake.
It was okra though, and they don't generally like okra in Tuscany.
Vardy-based cheeseburger.
And that's why having a CRM and everything else is so critically, and you just got to go through the pain of using it. And I notice we're running a little long, so I just want to wrap this up really quickly. You need to have a marketing budget. And the real question you need to ask is, what drives what? Does marketing drive sales, or does sales drive marketing? So many agents come in and say, Greg, what percentage of my sales should I spend on marketing? What's wrong with that question?
care how many sales.
You're dependent
right now,
upon
looking at
sales.
Marketing.
Right. What begets what, right?
Yes, it's like, what's the driving force?
You could have a sales-based business that's marketing enhanced, or a marketing-based business that's sales enhanced.
Yes.
Right, Jason, yeah.
To me, that's a much better way to look at it. So you need to ask, what do I need to accomplish? What do I need to spend to accomplish my goals? Yeah. That's, the other thing is you want to measure results. And so you want to know your ratios. How many leads do I need to generate an appointment? How many appointments to a listing? How many appointments to a buyer transaction? So you just need to know your conversion rates of everything out there. Now, if you're going on 20 listing presentations and you're only taking one of them, what does that tell you?
Suck.
That or you're not qualifying leads if they're not listing with anybody.
So it could tell you that the leads are really bad. Now, if you follow up and within 90 days of you going on that listing appointment, they listed with somebody, the lead was still a good lead.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? If you go on 20 listing presentations that eventually listed and you got one of them,
You need to work on your presentation.
That's, well,
it means
for
you need
sure,
to work on
yeah.
your skill set at the listing presentation.
Yes.
So remember that nothing happens in isolation. And so what you need to look at is, if I'm going on lots of appointments, I'm not getting any of them. It's my closing skills, it's my presentation, I need to work on those skill sets. If on the other hand, I'm getting 9 out of 10 listings I go on, and I'm just not going on enough listing presentations, my marketing is probably where the problem is. So it's a combination of skill and marketing in there. That's why your ratios will help you predict what you need to do. Now, as you start building your marketing, the first thing that always happens, the first indicator that you're making progress, is you start irritating people.
You got that one?
That's always the best indicator.
Yay!
You start doing anything and somebody will say, unsubscribe my email, stop mailing me things, you're killing trees, you're destroying the environment.
That's what you want to hear, right?
That's exactly what you want to hear.
I got a response that says, "Are you out of your mind? Are you too stupid to check the county records?" I got that. So
So,
that means I'm effective.
so yeah, that exactly.
Somebody has too much time on their hands or
So irritation is always a good indicator. And unfortunately, what I found is that most agents start a marketing campaign, they get a little bit of irritation, and they say, oh my goodness, I'm just making everybody mad, I'm doing the wrong thing, I should stop. And they stop just as they're starting to build some awareness. Awareness is the next thing. People will start recognizing you. You'll go into stores, you'll be at different places, and people will start recognizing you. That usually happens 3 to 4 months down the road. Increasing levels of activity usually take 4 to 6 months to actually start putting it together. So that's the things that you actually need to sort of put into place. And then building a marketing plan is easy because you just need to say, okay, I need to have 3 to 5 exposures in some combination out there. And this is a great example. I met a gentleman by the name of Ron Kubek. He was a realtor in Victoria, British Columbia. When I met him, he'd been in real estate 10 years. And for the previous 5 years in a row, he'd been doing right at $30 million or $10 million in sales. He was spending $33,000 a year in marketing in a variety of different ways. He was making about $225,000 in gross commission income. We did a complete media plan for him and basically said, okay, we can take your budget, because he said, I want to keep the budget about the same. So we put together a media plan of about $32,000 and
for the year.
for the year. Then executed the campaign, and the very first year we executed the campaign, his business jumped from 10.2 to 25.4 million, and went from $215,000 in gross commission income to $630,000.
Wow.
He targeted a higher commission.
Yes,
He
Has to be commission.
He was a little bit more consistent, by demonstrating the value of his commission. His price point went up a little bit, but not that much. But it was the consistency and what he was doing. It was actually having a marketing message, not just a picture and a name. So to me, that's how it all comes together. So, takeaways from today.
My to-do list got a whole lot longer.
I think my biggest one, and I put a star next to it, that don't use value-based judgment when using follow-up. 90% of the time, I'm when I rate the person, I'm wrong, because I do that a lot. When I get a lead, I'm like, they didn't do this, or they said this. And
Explain that again, value-based judgment?
yeah, you know, like when you get certain leads, and I've done this with you guys, where we sit down and like, we're not going to spend money on that person, you know, and they came in through whether it's an internet-based lead or open house or however they came in, we'll sit and make judgments on how we feel about it and not follow up with certain people, or not spend the money, I should say.
Right.
That's why I do the value-based, you know, is we really want to spend $1 a month on that person or $1.50, you know, because they add up after a while.
Yeah.
But what I found is that you took all the time and effort to generate the lead.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, I've got $75 invested in them. And now instead of investing another $12 to follow up with them for the next year, or $18, I let it go. And yet what I found is that for the people that follow up, I mean, if you talk to Dean, he will tell you some of the people that he met in year one, he followed up with consistently for 12 years. And 12 years into the marketing program, they called him and said, and he thought for sure they didn't know who he was, what he did. They never responded to anything, never returned a phone call, never did anything. And 12 years into it, would you come and list my $12 million home?
Yeah, I was
We take it too personally. We hold an open house, we call them, they don't return our phone call, and we think, oh, they must not like us. We have no idea what's going on in their life. No. And so to me, it's like, that's where this is my follow-up plan for every single person that I generate a lead for. And every person I meet at a social function, they should get your 8 by 8. Every possible lead you generate, just here's my lead follow-up plan for everybody that I generate. I'm just going to put them in that. And it will literally transform everything. That's the biggest difference I see between the true mega agents and the average agent. The consistency of their follow-up.
It's like I look at all of the transactions that I've had and I go, man, I just literally got lucky. With every, you know what I mean? Now, but one of my takeaways was the 3 to 5 exposures per week or per month. Okay, yeah. That is huge. You know, when it's like, okay, if I get my little thing out on Facebook and I send something and then I'm knocking on a door and I'm, it's just, that's just huge. And I don't think that that's that hard. Even if you start with 2, it's better than what I'm doing now, or even 1.
Well, and for people like you that have a past client base, the first thing to do is say, how do I make sure I'm staying in touch with my past client base, my sphere of influence, 3 to 5 times a month?
3 to 5 times a month.
So, that past client follow-up program
Yes.
basically is 2 to 3 times a month. If agents did that consistently with their past clients and sphere of influence, it always pays huge dividends. It's getting them to do that consistently year in and year out. So many people come in, they do it for 2 or 3 months, and then they fall off. And usually do it for 2 or 3 months, they get some business, and they got busy, and then they stopped their marketing because, I got busy.
That's always what happens, yeah.
How about just focusing on birthdays and anniversaries
that will definitely
Except
be.
when my agent, before I became got this business, and my agent would send me things, I called her, I said, look, I don't want to receive those things anymore because real estate wasn't in my mind. I told her, you'll be my agent when I'm ready, but I don't want you to send me all that stuff.
And so here's the one thing that, again, I said, think like a media planner, not a realtor, and don't assume your clients are like you. That's the kiss of death. When we start saying, what do I like? Well, you don't want anybody to contact you.
You were irritated. You were the number
But
one.
that's just one out of
So
maybe
she was like,
600,
right on, Dieter's
So-
pissed.
Not only that. Good point. That's a very good point. Right. I was projecting my reality onto her. Right. I agree with that.
And so if somebody calls you up and says, "Oh, gosh, I don't want you to mail me those things. You know, you're going to be my realtor." What should your response be?
I don't know.
What do you want me?
I mean, on the
How
spot,
do
I
you
was talking
want
about
me?
something.
So to me, it's like saying, you know, I really appreciate that. You know, this is my livelihood, and a number of people told that before. And here's what I found: I follow up with them anyway. And 3-4 years later, they said, "Well, I can't believe it. I'm calling you. You followed up. I didn't want all this stuff, but I'm calling you because you followed up."
Right, and I didn't forget you.
And here's the reality. I know that. Have you ever had friends that you really felt great about, and suddenly you find contact with them, and 5 years go by and you say, "Oh my goodness, I haven't contacted with them," and you no longer have a relationship? Did that ever happen to you?
And
I
I bought a
don't
house
want-
from somebody else a year before.
Or
Right.
I don't want that to happen to us. So
Perfect. That's great.
I want to risk irritating you a little bit because I don't want the relationship to go away.
Oh, that's great.
Is that okay with you?
Oh,
You
that's a
oriented,
good
that's
Irritating.
perfect.
How about my boss
Okay,
will fire me
irritating
if I do that?
you.
I can
You're
do
my
that.
boss.
That's good. That's good.
Oh, wait,
If I stop following
I want to risk
And-
irritating you a little bit.
So our relationship doesn't disappear.
That's perfect.
And if they really push on you and say, "Well, no, I'll list with you," and they always say, "Great, you know what? I really respect that, so I can tell you're a man of your word. I'm going to send you a listing contract. You have your home listed
Open-ended.
5 years.
for the next 25 years. I just won't put a start date on it."
That's great. That's great. Great. That is outstanding. That is
I would love that.
I'm
That would
going to
make,
use
that
that.
would make me laugh.
Well,
That's beautiful.
so here's the
I
key
do
thing.
like that.
When you're on the phone with somebody that's upset, the number one goal you should have is to make them laugh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Greg, that is brilliant. What
one
you
of
just
the
did.
people that I had a huge impact on me, I always hate using him as an example because he was not a good salesperson. He just didn't care anything about real estate or the contract or anything. And so he gave people lots of bad advice. But everybody loved him because he always made them have fun. And to me, it's like, he told me, if somebody's upset at you, if you can get them to laugh, you're going to convert them. He says, if you try and debate them, convince them, educate them that they're wrong, it's over.
Oh, that's so true.
He says, just, oh, and he says, make fun of yourself. We take ourselves way too seriously. Tell a story and you'll get people to be involved. And I know we ran long, so any last takeaways from our meeting today?
I've got
This is
one.
excellent.
I've got one. I know that I'm CEO of my business, and I think in my mind that I'm also the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, I'm the Chief Financial Officer, and I'm also the Chief Sales Manager, right? All those three things. And in the past I thought I can handle all three. What I've learned today is I'm not effective. I'm effective in 2 or 3 things, which would be the listing presentation, the closing, and the follow-up and all of that, and the contract stuff. I'm good at that. And I have misled myself thinking that I can handle the marketing piece too. So that's my takeaway.
Well, I do think a lot of people don't spend enough either time, not that they can't, but they either don't make the decisions necessary.
Mhm.
And that's why, to me, as I help people in marketing, most of the time, what they really want is they say, well, just give me a marketing plan that I can follow. And unfortunately, this is also what real estate companies do. Because every real estate company you go to, I mean, First Team included, you can go online, and there's a ton of basic marketing plans, and there's a set of generic marketing materials, but unless you really think about your personality, the marketplace, and everything else, and you put that together, the chances of it working are just slim. That's, to me, the great frustration is that great marketing comes from educated decisions and choices that make it. It's not that hard, but you just got to make some of those decisions. You got to get clarity on, gosh, I'm really targeting that 72-year-old couple. What are their hopes and dreams? What are their, and once you get clear, because think about most of the generic marketing we see. Think about the flyers we create. It's so generic. It's just,
Boring.
oh, and we're bored with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
All right.